maestro miércoles, ha sido muchísimo tiempo que nos hemos comunicado, ¿verdad? Well, feliz año nuevo. I hope that your new year, although it's the middle of the academic year, is off to a great start. So hoy en Maestro Miércoles vamos a hablar de four tips, actual tips to learn Spanish for free. So if you have set the intention to improve or learn Spanish for your profession as being a teacher in the next year in 2019, I have some good tips, 4 tips for you to get started on them right away. So let's go through this. First things first, you guys might have seen this slide on the Maestro Miércoles Facebook page, but Spanish is not an easy goal to attack and become bilingual and fluent right away in. So you guys need to know that that's not easy at all. People say that it takes up to 7 years of consistent studying, and not just studying it, but using it and sometimes being immersed into the language and culture. So 7 years to reach mastery. So keep that in mind. In our current culture where we just want everything instantaneous, Spanish and lots of other great goals that are worthy of your time take a lot of time. So, and also, here's 2 truths to keep in mind as well. Big goals aren't a problem as long as you break them down and set little mini attainable goals that lead up to the big goals. In our household, in our business, in our teaching, we talk about SMART goals. If you haven't heard that term, that acronym, I'm going to go through it real quickly, and I'll include a little PDF of SMART goal worksheet for you to fill out if Spanish is one of your goals, and there's an example of how to set SMART goals. So I'll add that to the comments below. Second thing, it's hard to learn Spanish, but hard doesn't really matter. There are lots of things in life that are hard, and just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad or a problem. It's just hard. Recognize that it's hard, and if you want it, set your intention and realize it's going to be hard and work through it, push through it. So hard isn't really, people say, oh, but it's so hard, or I'm terrible at learning Spanish. Who cares? You need to learn Spanish? Go for it. Okay, so back to SMART goals, setting up, so learning Spanish is a huge goal, but if you set a SMART goal, okay, the S stands for specific, the M stands for measurable, the A stands for achievable, R, relevant, I like to say realistic, and the T, time bound. So you set a specific goal, not just learn Spanish, but maybe learn Spanish to go through a parent-teacher conference in Spanish. So identify the top 10 vocabulary words you need in parent-teacher conferences and the top 10 verb conjugations you need, and focus on that. Okay, so specific, measurable, maybe by February, learn the top 10 vocabulary and the top 10 verbs in order to get through parent-teacher conference. Achievable, is it possible to do 10, or maybe you need to cut it back to 5, or maybe you can boost it up to 20, and this is adjustable. Realistic, okay, learning Spanish is not a very realistic goal, but learning Spanish to get through parent-teacher conferences, focusing on the top 10 vocabulary words and the top 10 verbs, is a very realistic, relevant goal. And time-bound, maybe in order to reach those mastery of the top 10 vocabulary and the top 10 verbs, you need to focus on 2 vocabulary words and 2 verbs per week, and really master that, not just head knowledge, but speaking knowledge. So practice applying and using it in class and setting up little role play mock situations for you. So again, I'll add this little SMART goals, learning Spanish for educators, in the comment box, a PDF that you can download and fill in your goals. And there's an example of the example I just went over. So break your goal into smaller, realistic goals. Okay, so that wasn't even tip number 1, but that was a useful tip. Okay, relevant vocabulary. So start with strategy 1. Where are your needs? Wherever there's a need for you to learn Spanish, you're going to be able to learn it much quicker because you have that pressure to learn Spanish. So identify your needs. Your specific context, whether that is explaining classroom behavior, expectations in Spanish, talking about classroom rules in Spanish, making a phone call home to a Spanish-speaking family, to those parents. So identify your specific context and needs. General big ideas, big areas will just kill motivation. Identify those specific areas, and then how to communicate those things. So if it's parent-teacher conferences, that's neat. How are you going to practice that and communicate that and study that? Okay, find resources to study those specific topics. The internet is full of them. Our website, if you don't want to sift through a bunch of stuff, our website, commongroundnational.com. On my blog, I have a ton of Spanish for Educators resources, free classes, downloads, vocabulary lists, all that kind of stuff. So find resources to study those specific topics, and then go the extra step and designate either a specific time of the day, every day, or a specific day of the week where you're going to sit down and study Spanish. So calendar it, put it in your calendar, program it, and make it happen. Okay, so that's strategy number one. Here's some great tools for helping you reach strategy number one. Our Spanish for Educators blog, as I mentioned. Common Ground's Quizlet page, if you're not familiar with Quizlet, it's both an app on your phone and or on your computer, and it is full of flashcards, memorization games, things like that. But we have our own page, CGI, Common Ground National CGI Spanish, where you will find a lot of vocab to help you memorize. Or if you're old school and there's a lot of value in doing this, I'm like this, it actually helps me to write out and make my own flashcards, because the act of writing it out, one side Spanish, the other side English, really helps me, and that helps me to memorize that. So make flashcards, keep a running notebook of vocabulary lists and things that you're learning, and keep that with you in your classroom. Relevant vocabulary and importance. We're used to being the teachers, but I encourage you to be the student again. What is it like to study and to be intrigued and to be frustrated and to reach your goals as a student? So be a student of Spanish again. Okay, so there's some goals or some ways to reach that strategy number one. Okay, strategy number two, in addition to vocabulary, it's important to master grammar. And this is where a lot of memorization has to happen, but master useful grammar. Not just any grammar, but useful grammar for the context that you identified in the first strategy. What are the grammar, the grammar topics that you need to know in order to get through parent-teacher conferences, in order to encourage your Spanish-speaking kiddos in the classroom, in order to speak to parents over the phone. Oftentimes we get stuck thinking that we have to go in our learning Spanish has to be linear. First we have to learn the ser and estar, then we have to learn present tense verbs, then we have to learn past tense verbs. No, you're capable of learning out of order, out of that linear order, because you have a real need. And so learn based on your needs that are coming up, your present needs. And it doesn't matter if you're learning past tense before present tense, because you have a need and you need to be able to communicate that right away. Okay, so narrow down your useful grammar, write it down, think through maybe essential questions or phrases that you use in English that you need to be able to use in Spanish. And if you need help knowing what is the name or the part of speech or grammar that you need to research and find materials for, you can just write me an email or comment on this post and let me know, and I'll let you know, oh yeah, that is preterite. Search for preterite, and then you'll be on your way. And just some examples, if you think of instructions that you use every day: did you, what were you, have you turned in your homework, did you complete your test, okay, will you please put that in the bin over there, would you like to work in partners or groups or things like that. So just some good question starters to think about. So identify the necessary grammar that you need to communicate for your specific context, and then find a way to drill the grammar. Again, there's lots of resources online, and I'm going to give you 3 tools right now to drill grammar. StudySpanish.com. There is a significant free portion of that website where you can go through that linear order or out of order and study grammar topics and take mini quizzes. And then of course there's a paid version of that website, but the StudySpanish.com free part is sufficient to get started. Our company, Common Ground National, we have online classes that you can get started with right away, very reasonable. We also have tutoring and things like that, online tutoring. And then here's a really great book to review grammar. It's called The Ultimate Spanish Review and Practice. And so this is a great grammar review resource book to have on hand so you can practice that. So you can review the grammar or learn the grammar for the first time and go through exercises that are in the book as well. But be sure to check my blog also, as I have a ton of grammar resources on there and vocabulary resources for you. Okay, strategy number 3, consume Spanish. So oftentimes people on our immersion programs, after being totally immersed, our teachers being totally immersed on our immersion programs, they are worried about how they're going to continue to learn Spanish at the level that they were on immersion when they get back into the United States. And we say, you know, if you dedicate 10 minutes a day to figuring out either how to listen, read, write, or speak Spanish, 10 minutes a day, inevitably that 10 minutes a day will turn into 30 minutes a day. But it's much better and more valuable on a learning perspective to designate 10 minutes a day, a little bit each day, rather than taking an hour and a half or 2 hours on a Sunday to learn Spanish. Consuming it. So turn your radio station to a Spanish radio station in the car. Listen to podcasts in Spanish. Watch Netflix series in Spanish. Those are some ideas. There's a modern learning language theory called comprehensible input, meaning that you don't have to wait till you understand everything to start being immersed in your mind and learning and listening and reading materials, Spanish materials that are for native-like people. You just pick out the vocab words that you want to focus on. No, you won't. If you're a beginner, you won't understand everything, but you'll understand, maybe pick out 5 new vocabulary words and try to focus on that. So consume Spanish. Beginners, start reading right away. You can even go to the library and pick out books, kids' books in Spanish, and begin reading that way. Here's just some other tips. Get your school district's website and see what materials they have on there in Spanish for communicating with parents, and print those out and keep a binder and start studying that vocabulary. Look for Spanish brochures on your school district's website. Go to your math curriculum, their online learning platform, and see what resources they have in Spanish. Whether you do math expressions or iReady or iStation, a lot of those offer Spanish resources and tools on their websites online. So go ahead and investigate with your curriculum that you use in your classroom and see if they have Spanish resources on their online platforms, and even with your school district's website. Here's a little pro tip. When reading in Spanish, instead of using Google Translate, use a dictionary. You get used to, well, first of all, the art of using a dictionary is kind of a lost art. We're having to teach our kids how to use a dictionary, like a real handheld dictionary, instead of Google Translate. Google Translate doesn't know the exact meaning or context, and it can actually confuse you a little bit more. So use a dictionary to look up words and vocabulary. And then if you are already intermediate advanced, read, watch, listen, think of those 3 modes, and then add the speaking mode in there. Like I said, podcast, Netflix, there's a great website called Fluent U, and I'll add that in the comments, that gives you real-time news stories from the Spanish-speaking world, and they level it to beginner, intermediate, advanced, so you can kind of pick your level and read real news time stories that are going on across the world right now in Espanol. Muy bien, CNN Spanish is also a great resource, and Univision also. So think about consuming. How are you going to consume your Espanol today, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes every day? Okay? And then strategy number 4, it's easy to have head knowledge in lots of areas of our life, not just Spanish, and it's harder in Spanish to actually use it, apply it. So we're going to encourage you to find a conversational partner. So studying improves your knowledge, but practice improves your ability. And remember, it doesn't matter whether you speak perfectly. It's just that you are on the path to learning Spanish, and you're going to make mistakes. And so get perfection out of your mind and focus on communication. Was your message communicated, whether it was imperfect or perfect? Okay, so find a conversational partner. Maybe you have a friend at school, a colleague that has the same goal as you to learn Spanish, and so you can designate one day a week where you have lunch together in Espanol, or meet for coffee, or do planning and prep in Espanol. Another more formal way is to find a Spanish meetup group and meet up with them on a weekend or Sunday after school when you have time. Invite a Spanish speaker to do a language exchange. There's several Spanish speakers that need to learn English and want to learn English, and you want to learn Spanish, so you can do a language exchange where you meet for half an hour over a cup of cafecito or vino or cerveza, and they speak English and you speak Spanish, and you help each other out, correct each other and help each other out. Here's another pro tip. If you are a beginner, okay, and you're meeting with a Spanish speaker in a Spanish meetup, try to avoid the why questions. Why is the present perfect like this? Because you think about your native language. Mine is English. I don't know all the whys for the grammar because I'm not an English teacher. I'm a Spanish teacher. So they might not know the whys and how to answer your grammar-related questions as well. And you may get a little lost. So focus on the conversational topic that is there right in front of you. So 4 tips, just a little summary. Memorize relevant vocabulary for you. Where there is a need, it is easier to master that. Okay? Master useful vocabulary. Identify your context. Identify the grammar and start with that. Consume more Spanish. Think about 10 minutes a day of consuming Spanish, either reading, writing, speaking. And find a conversational partner. Okay, 4 tips that you can start on right away. If you have any questions or doubts or want help, you can email me at lfoster@CommonGroundNational, or drop a comment in the comment section below. And of course, look for more Spanish resources, lots of free resources and paid resources on our website. Muchísimas gracias. Hasta luego. Ciao.